Indonesian pirates miscalculated their target, attacking the Vietnamese Coast Guard and meeting a bitter end. Good evening, esteemed audience, and welcome back to the 10th episode of Top Secret. Ladies and gentlemen, we have long often thought that pirates were merely an image seen in cinematic films. But the surprising thing is that in real life, pirates are completely real and a constant terror for cargo ships whenever they must face them. Among them, there was a notoriously aggressive pirate group that frequently caused significant trouble throughout the Southeast Asian region. However, no matter how aggressive it is with others, when it comes to Vietnam, this country only knows how to cut the power. Right now, let's take a detailed look at who that group of pirates was and how Vietnam dealt with them. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in recent times, the number of piracy incidents in the Southeast Asian region has shown a significant increasing trend. On multiple occasions, the Vietnam Coast Guard has had to proactively intervene to ensure the safety of small vessels operating at sea. At 1819 on November 19, 2012, the Information Center of the Vietnam Coast Guard. Currently, the Vietnam Coast Guard Command has just received an urgent cable from the Piracy Reporting Center of the International Maritime Bureau located in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. They announced that the Malaysian chemical tanker Zafira had gone missing. The last known position where the Zafira made contact with its owner was at coordinates 9 degrees 21 minutes 58 seconds north latitude and 109 degrees 26 minutes 49 seconds east longitude. At 10:06 on November 19, the position was identified as 110 nautical miles, equivalent to approximately 204 kilometers, to the south-southeast of the ship's bridge. According to preliminary information, this is the vessel Zafira, callsign YMO, with the International Maritime Registration number 9016387. The Malaysian-flagged vessel has a displacement of 1,125 tons and is traveling on a heading of 7 degrees north at a speed of 8 knots, equivalent to approximately 15 kilometers per hour. The ship's cargo weighs 300 tons and is of a flammable and explosive nature. The security situation is out of control, and there is a possibility the ship has been attacked by pirates. After receiving, assessing, and evaluating the situation, the Vietnam Coast Guard promptly reported to the General Staff and informed the Coast Guard vessels on duty at sea. Report immediately to the Coast Guard Department Command upon receiving information about the Zafira vessel. At 10:06 a.m. on October 20th, Singapore's government-run Information Sharing Center for Combating Piracy, RECOP ISC, announced alert regarding a hijacked vessel potentially entering Vietnamese waters. Here is the message. Our latest update on the missing ship. From 10 degrees 5 minutes 38 seconds north latitude to 109 degrees 28 minutes 37 seconds east longitude, heading 235 degrees south-southwest. Speed of 10 knots, equivalent to approximately 18.5 kilometers per hour. According to reconnaissance satellite data, the vessel is highly likely to be entering Vietnamese waters. We respectfully request that you notify the relevant authorities so that appropriate measures may be taken. Just a few hours after receiving the urgent cable from the Piracy Information Sharing Center. At 4:40 p.m., after having reported and requested instructions from the General Staff. At Phu Khai Island in Binh Thuan Province, the Vietnam Coast Guard has ordered vessel CSB 6007 to carry out its mission. The mobile unit conducted reconnaissance to gather information about the missing ship. On the afternoon of October 20th, the Coast Guard Department received an urgent telegraph from the Piracy Reporting Center. The International Maritime Bureau, IMB, stated, at 17:58 local time, we identified the latest coordinates of the missing vessel Batkak Zafira. 52 inches north latitude to 109 degrees 16. At a speed of 12 knots per hour, it is highly likely this vessel is attempting to make port in Vietnam. The IMB vessel's course indicates it has maintained a stable heading of south-southwest. This information once again confirms that the Zafira vessel's diversion into Vietnamese waters is entirely credible. At 23:15 on November 20th, the Vietnam Coast Guard received a notification about the pirate incident from your unit's center. At 11 p.m. on November 20th, 2012, local time. 47 inches north latitude to 108 degrees 50. Heading 247 degrees, which is south-southwest, with an average speed of 9 knots, equivalent to nearly 17 kilometers per hour. According to updated vessel position information from the shiplock system, the ship is currently still on its journey entering Vietnamese waters. We have calculated and determined the location of the nearest coastline. The specific results are as follows. The vessel is currently positioned approximately 94 nautical miles from the nearest coastline, identified to be off the ship's starboard side, 90 degrees from its current position. The ship appears to be heading towards Con Sun Island, which is 136 nautical miles, equivalent to 252 kilometers, ahead. We are convinced that the pirates aboard are attempting to make port to either dispose of the cargo or scuttle the ship. At 9:35 a.m. on November 21st, the center announced the pirate attack. The International Maritime Bureau will continue to provide further updates. Based on our observations, the ship is likely approaching Con Sun. The vessel is 42 nautical miles from the nearest point of the island, equivalent to approximately 78 kilometers. According to the cable, the Zafira is still proceeding on the course that had been maintained since the previous day. Still moving in a southwest direction, the storm has advanced 94 nautical miles closer to Con Sun Island. Based on information that is regularly updated and shared with the Malaysian International Maritime Bureau, the Intergovernmental Anti-Piracy Information Sharing Center in Singapore, Singapore Navy's Center for Analysis and Integration, the Vietnam Coast Guard has identified and confirmed the identity, status and factors affecting a vessel's operational capability when under pirate attack, and develop a plan to track, detect, and verify the hijacked ship. Then, Major General Nguyen Quang Dam, commander of the Vietnam Coast Guard. Currently holding the rank of senior colonel, he is the director of the Vietnam Coast Guard. Just a few hours after determining that the hijacked ship was entering Vung Tau waters, the authorities implemented very tight monitoring and control measures. At 13:40, the Vietnam Coast Guard received an encrypted urgent dispatch from the General Staff of the Vietnam People's Army. The Vietnam Coast Guard is requested to deploy 1 to 2 vessels. Maximum speed ahead, calculate the approach vector to the pirate ship. Restrain, verify, handle according to legal regulations, and report to the Ministry of National Defense Headquarters. An emergency meeting was held at the Coast Guard headquarters. The combat plan has been finalized. We respectfully request guidance and direction from the General Staff. 12 minutes later, at 13:52, Colonel Nguyen Quang Dam issued an order to the 3rd Coast Guard Division in Vung Tau. Using the fleet of ships CSB 4034 and 9001, quickly maneuver immediately to the area of the hijacked ship. To coordinate with relevant forces in the task of inspection and situation control. At this time, vessels CSB 4034 and CSB 9001 are present in the area east of the Dong Dan Shoal. The island is located approximately 45 nautical miles, equivalent to 83 kilometers, to the southeast. Meanwhile, in Hanoi, the command of the Vietnam Coast Guard also received an urgent report from the center. Notice regarding the piracy incident. The owner of Mount Zafira reported receiving rumors from the oil market. Singapore will receive the distressed Mariska cargo from the Mount Zafira vessel tonight through a company named Petty Mark. Currently, according to our calculations, the vessel is 92 nautical miles from Vung Tau and is moving at a speed of 5 knots. The vessel is expected to dock at Vung Tau within the next 18 hours. This information makes the time available for search efforts extremely urgent. At 8:30 p.m. on the 21st, the reinforcement of forces became more urgent than ever, nearly 7 hours after the incident. In November, the Coast Guard Department dispatched a ship that was on duty at Vung Tau port to promptly set sail. On the afternoon of November 21st, the center announced it was coordinating with vessel CSB 4034 to carry out the search operation. The Coast Guard vessel also sent a message detailing the paint color of the Zafira ship. The upper structural framework of the ship is painted white. The smokestack is also painted white and sometimes has the 2 letters EA written on it. Mr. Smoke, photo attached. The train car is painted green, while the upper part of the locomotive is painted black. The red color is painted on the lower hull of the ship. The ship's YMO number is embossed on the stern, even if the pirates paint over it. With meat, the YMO code can still be identified. Immediately, the Coast Guard vessels were ordered to proceed directly to the area with the identified coordinates. At maximum speed, undeterred by the dark of night, ship CSB 4031 departed from Vung Tau port and raced out to sea. In the dead of night, authorities launched a special operation to search for the Zafira vessel. At that time, Ship CSB 4034-9001 was on its voyage advancing toward the Spratly Islands. And the DK-1 platform was also ordered to proceed to the designated coordinates to coordinate with ship CSB 4031. On command, in the darkness of night, Coast Guard vessel CSB 4031 immediately departed the pier, speeding out to sea at a velocity of 25 to 28 knots. We set out in the darkness of night, at a time when the sea was extremely rough, with winds already at force 6 and waves reaching force 5. Our ship had to travel at a speed of 46 to 52 kilometers per hour. At 8:30 p.m. on November 21st, navigating out of the ship's defense channel, already difficult by day, became an even more arduous task in the darkness of night. That night, the surrounding area was undergoing channel dredging, and as it was also an oil and gas service zone, there was a great deal of boat traffic. The ship sailed continuously through the night. The pitch-black darkness required the entire crew to focus on observing the radar. Avoid visual contact and physical interaction. Directive from the commander of the command and the Minister of National Defense. Move at maximum speed under permissible conditions to search for the Zafira vessel. Captain Lahai Trong, captain of ship CSB 4031 and leader of the search team for the Zafira vessel, recalled. Approximately 2 hours after vessel CSB 4031 departed, at the onshore command center. At 22:07, the Coast Guard received a message from the Piracy Reporting Center of the International Maritime Bureau. IBM stated that the Zafira vessel is guarding ship number 62, with a current speed of 5 knots. The vessel is highly likely to approach the target to discharge its cargo within the next 12 hours. We provide the following additional information about the vessel. There is a shore power generator on the bow, which is an identifying feature. An electrical generator was located in the cockpit, opposite the foam compartment. This is very valuable information for the assessment. Emergency alert. Pirates are attacking. At 2:30 a.m. on November 22nd, the fleet consisting of vessels CSB 4034 and CSB 4031 arrived at the exact designated area. The two vessels were only 200 to 300 meters apart, equivalent to 1 to 2 nautical miles, and deployed into a formation to search for the hijacked ship. The night fell thick and heavy, yet the Coast Guard fleet silently tracked their target's trail through the darkness. Some feasible targets that appeared on the radar screen ultimately turned out to be just ordinary cargo ships. At 3:30 a.m., at coordinates 9 degrees, 50 minutes, 10 seconds. From north latitude to east longitude 107 degrees 19 minutes 55 seconds, located in the south-southeast direction relative to Okap Cape. 36 nautical miles off the coast of Vung Tau, the radar screens on the two CSB ships were displaying a highly suspicious target. This target moves continuously at a speed and in a direction that are constantly and unpredictably changing. Drawing from experience gained in live drills and accumulated knowledge, Captain Lahai Trong decided to have the ship close in on the target. Captain Nguyen Tuan Hai, CSB 4034 vessel closed in and approached the fisherman's boat. Two Vietnamese Coast Guard vessels performed maneuvers surrounding the ship that exhibited suspicious signs. Turn on the spotlight to observe the paint color and the structure of the peeling hull on ship number YMO. The difficulty lies in how to approach at the closest range, sufficient to observe the structure of the ship's hull and its paint layers. Approaching a ship under suspicion in the dead of night is an extremely dangerous undertaking. CSB Squadron 4031 and 4034 were ordered to attempt to close in on the target at the closest possible distance. To observe thoroughly and make accurate assessments. When approaching the suspected target, vessel CSB 4031 turned on its spotlight, shining it directly onto the wheelhouse. But the strange ship remained silent, without the slightest movement. In other situations, when Coast Guard vessels engage in similar behavior, fishermen or captains often wonder why. Silence only deepened the Coast Guard's. Captain Lahai Trong contacted via VHF radio on Channel 16. We are the Vietnam Coast Guard, currently on a patrol and inspection mission. Vessel ahead, please state your name, course, and speed. Why was there a change in the port of departure and port of arrival, leading to such a route alteration? Are you asking about the tasks required when entering this area? The captain's clear and distinct voice rang out. Following Captain Lahai Trong's speech, a profound silence fell in response. I had to repeat myself before a voice finally responded from the other end of the walkie-talkie. The voice was hesitant, lacking in confidence, and missing essential information such as the port of departure, port of arrival, how much fuel was consumed, but when asked about the waiting time, they gave no answer. Channel 16 specializes in international news. All vessels operating at sea must keep this device activated 24/7 and be ready for inspection by the authorities at any time. When you ask, you must receive an answer. According to international regulations, any vessel that fails to respond to warnings will be considered a suspicious object. Lieutenant Lahai Trong asked once more, and this time, he received an answer. The information does not match the original data. When the captains convened for a meeting, Lieutenant Lahai Trong immediately reported the situation to the command headquarters. The Vietnam Coast Guard is the central authority responsible for directing and commanding the entire Coast Guard force nationwide. Colonel Nguyen Quang Dam gave a brief order. He requested to meet the ship's captain directly. When Lieutenant Lahai Trong repeated the questions, the captain answered in a stammering manner. And this completely contradicts what they had previously stated. Last time they announced the ship was heading to China, but this time the captain confirmed the destination as Singapore. These manifestations are clearly very unusual. The fleet reported to the headquarters and provided an initial assessment that this was a suspicious vessel. At that time, we received direct orders from Director Nguyen Quang Dam. The vessel must remain anchored at this position. To ensure safety, the head of the Vietnam Coast Guard ordered 2 vessels numbered 4031 and 4034. 2 soldiers held positions on either side of the enemy's tunnel network, well beyond the effective range of AK rifles. It's hard to verify when the sky is clear, and it was a tense night. All that night, we waited for the CSB 9001 ship to come to our rescue. CSB vessels 4031 and 4034 had to exert maximum effort and stretch themselves to the limit to complete the mission. By any means necessary, keep the suspected vessel in its current position. From 3:30 a.m., the Vietnam Coast Guard vessel squadron continuously moved, closely followed, and surrounded the area. Close in on the suspicious vessel, do not maneuver, and switch to Channel 16 to announce and request this vessel to stop. The suspected vessel remained silent, uncooperative, and continued on its journey. Directive: we must reconfirm the vessel. Thus, it is necessary to approach very close to the target, to a distance of only about 30 to 50 meters. The ship's crude structure and shape perfectly match the description of the pirate vessel issued by the Information Center. The IBM International Maritime Center in Malaysia and Singapore Customs are collaborating to provide this. But when the Coast Guard turned on their lights and used lasers to observe in the darkness, they saw the ship's name was CSB Sirhor, flying the Honduran flag, has IMO number 9016081. Ship CSB 4031 only had enough time to collect those 2 pieces of information before having to quickly leave the area, maintaining a safe distance of 200 to 500 meters. Outside the effective firing range of the AK rifles, we maintained a safe distance and coordinated with vessel CSB 4034 to establish an encirclement. We believe it is likely that they will cut their anchor and flee under cover of night. All 100% of the ship's personnel are on full alert, ready to maneuver and surround the target. Ready to sacrifice, block all mobility of this vessel. My brother strained his eyes, peering through the crack in the door and the headlights. That entire night, my brothers and I remained on high alert, ready to respond to any situation, which made for an extremely tense atmosphere. The ship's captain is Mr. Lahai Trong KY. This high-speed chase continued until vessel CSB 90001 arrived on the scene to assist. The 3 Coast Guard vessels were forced to break off their bow on approach and repeatedly issued demands on Channel 16. At this point, the suspicious ship finally dropped anchor. It was 6:30 a.m. on November 22nd. The biggest advantage right now is that it's already daylight. However, the Coast Guard forces can be clearly observed with the naked eye. The vessel is flying the Honduran flag, with white lettering painted on the stern. Captain Lahai Trong raised the binoculars to his eyes and observed carefully. When you zoom in on the 2 lines of text at the top, the Mount Seahorse Honduras and its stern section are showing smudges and lines that are not as sharp as usual. These brush strokes indicate they were freshly painted and done in a great hurry. The hull structure and overall shape are nearly identical to those of the Sephiroth ship. However, information such as the paint color, cabin design, ship name, YMO number, number of crew members, and their nationality